Captain Vextar of the Galactic Survey Corps stood at the bridge viewport of the pristine Judgment, watching the blue marble of Earth spin lazily below. His mandibles clicked with satisfaction. Another primitive world to bring into the fold of civilization. This should take, maybe 20 minutes. Standard procedure, Lieutenant Zackwell, he announced, adjusting his ceremonial battle sash. Deploy shock troops, demand surrender, collect tribute. I want to be back for second meal. What Vextar didn't know, as his sleek landing craft descended toward the Montana wilderness, was that at that exact moment, wildlife researcher Marcus Rodriguez was having what he would later describe as one of those days that makes you question your life choices. "Napoleon, you absolute maniac! Get back here!" Marcus shouted, crashing through the underbrush in pursuit of 40 pounds of pure concentrated fury wrapped in a deceptively cute package. The honey badger had escaped during a routine health check and was now living his best life, terrorizing the local ecosystem. The alien landing craft touched down in a clearing with all the subtlety of a dinner gong, complete with dramatic smoke effects and ominous humming sounds. Vextar emerged with his elite squad, plasma weapons gleaming, expecting to find cowering primitives ready to grovel before superior galactic technology. Instead, he found Marcus Rodriguez, 6 feet of flannel-wearing determination, army-crawling toward a log while making what could only be described as kissing noises. "Easy there, Napoleon," Marcus cooed. "Come on, buddy. I've got your favorite snacks." Vextar blinked his 3 eyes in confusion. The human appeared to be negotiating with a small, furry creature that was currently dismantling a fallen tree with its bare claws, apparently for fun. "Greetings, primitive being," Vextar declared, raising his plasma rifle for maximum intimidation effect. "I am Captain Vextar of the—" He never finished the sentence, because Napoleon had noticed the shiny newcomers and decided they looked like excellent entertainment. The honey badger charged directly at the alien squad, making a sound like a chainsaw having an argument with a blender. Vextar's elite soldiers, trained in 17 different forms of combat and equipped with enough firepower to level a small city, took one look at 35 pounds of incoming attitude and did what any sensible being would do. They screamed and scattered. "Oh, come on," Marcus sighed, standing up and brushing leaves off his jacket. "He's not that bad. Napoleon, heal." To the alien's absolute horror, the terrifying creature actually stopped, looked back at the human, and made what sounded suspiciously like a disappointed grunt. "Yeah, I know. They're new," Marcus said conversationally. "But we don't eat the visitors until we know why they're here." He looked at Vextar, who was currently trying to hide behind a tree that was significantly smaller than he was. "So, you guys lost or something?" Vextar's sophisticated combat scanner was going haywire, alternating between immediate threat and error does not compute, as it tried to categorize Napoleon. How could something so small register such high aggression levels? How was this human controlling what appeared to be a bioengineered weapon of mass destruction? You can command this creature?" Vextar managed, his voice cracking slightly. Marcus scratched his beard. "Command is a strong word. We have an understanding. I feed him, and he only destroys things I don't particularly care about." He paused. "Speaking of which, you might want to tell your buddy over there to stop pointing that glowy thing at Napoleon. He takes that kind of thing personally." Lieutenant Zackwell, who had been trying to get a targeting lock on the honey badger, found himself staring directly into Napoleon's beady black eyes. The honey badger tilted his head, as if considering whether the alien would make a good chew toy. The lieutenant's weapon clattered to the ground. "Smart choice," Marcus nodded approvingly. "Napoleon's got trust issues." Captain Vextar attempted to regain his composure, which was difficult considering one of his elite soldiers was currently stuck 10 feet up a pine tree, while Napoleon circled below like a furry shark. The honey badger had apparently decided the alien's boot tasted interesting and wanted the rest of the set. "Ahem," Vextar cleared his throat, consulting his standard conquest protocol datapad with shaking claws. "By the authority of the Galactic Survey Corps, I hereby claim this world for the great initiative." "Oh, hey, Marcus." Dr. Lily Chen jogged into the clearing, carrying a tablet, and wearing the kind of expression that suggested she'd just discovered something fascinating. She was the kind of xenobiologist who got genuinely excited about discovering new ways for life forms to be completely unreasonable. "I got your message about Napoleon escaping again, and—" "Oh," she stopped, taking in the scene of alien soldiers in various states of panic. "Did we get visitors?" "Apparently," Marcus said. "They seem to be under the impression that Napoleon here is some kind of weapon system." Lily looked at Napoleon, who was now attempting to untie Zaquel's bootlaces with his teeth while the alien stood perfectly still, afraid to move. I mean, technically speaking, he kind of is. You see? Vexstar exclaimed, pointing a trembling claw at her. Even your own scientists acknowledge the destructive capabilities of your bioweapon. Bioweapon? Lily blinked, then started laughing. Oh, that's rich. Napoleon's not a weapon. He's just Napoleon. We've got thousands like him running around. The color drained from Vexstar's face, which was impressive considering he was already a sort of grayish-green. Thousands? Well, not exactly like Napoleon, Marcus clarified helpfully. He's special. Most honey badgers don't have his particular talent for creative property destruction. As if summoned by the mention of his skills, Napoleon abandoned his bootlace project and wandered over to the alien's fancy landing craft. He began systematically testing various protrusions with his claws, apparently conducting his own engineering assessment. Stop him, Vexstar shrieked. That ship contains sensitive galactic technology. Napoleon, no, Marcus called out, but it was too late. The honey badger had discovered that the ship's external sensor array made an excellent scratching post. Sparks began to fly. Lily pulled out her tablet and began taking notes. Fascinating. Your technology appears to be less durable than I would have expected from an advanced spacefaring civilization. Our equipment is rated for extreme environments, Vexstar protested. Plasma storms, gravitational anomalies, even direct meteor impacts. But apparently not honey badgers, Lily observed, watching Napoleon successfully detach an entire sensor panel. That's going to be an interesting addition to our first contact protocols. The ship's computer began announcing various system failures in a calm, pleasant voice that somehow made everything sound worse. Warning, external sensors offline. Warning, communications array compromised. Warning, landing gear stability questionable. How is this possible? Lieutenant Zaquel whispered from his tree, watching Napoleon move on to investigate what appeared to be the ship's primary stabilizer. Our analysis indicated this planet's dominant species had barely achieved spaceflight. How did they develop such advanced biological weapons? We didn't develop him, Marcus explained patiently. Evolution did. About 6 million years of natural selection created the perfect package of fearlessness, curiosity, and complete disregard for the laws of physics. Natural selection? Vexstar's scanner was now making unhappy beeping sounds as it tried to process this information. You mean this creature evolved naturally? Without genetic engineering? Without military conditioning? Yup, Lily said cheerfully. Though, to be fair, we did give him a name and regular vet checkups. That's about the extent of human involvement in the Napoleon project. The ship's computer announced with mechanical cheer. Warning, life support systems compromised. Please contact your nearest authorized dealer. Napoleon looked up from his work, covered in alien circuitry and looking extremely pleased with himself. He made a satisfied chittering sound that somehow conveyed both pride in his accomplishments and mild disappointment that there wasn't more technology to dismantle. High above Earth's atmosphere, Admiral Crexmore paced the bridge of the flagship Inevitable Consequence, his forearms gesticulating wildly as he processed the increasingly disturbing reports from the surface team. Let me understand this correctly, he said to his communications officer, his voice rising to what could generously be called a controlled shriek. Captain Vexstar's elite squad has been neutralized by a single biological weapon, and the humans are treating this as routine? Yes, sir, Communications Officer Blickstar replied nervously. The surface team reports the humans referred to multiple similar weapons as pets and seem genuinely confused by our concern. Pets? Admiral Crexmore's eye stalks twitched. They keep weapons of mass destruction as pets? What the Admiral didn't know was that at that precise moment Napoleon had discovered something far more interesting than the landing craft's external systems. During his systematic exploration of alien technology, he'd managed to squeeze through a service hatch and was now inside the ship, where everything was shiny, unfamiliar, and therefore in desperate need of investigation. The ship's interior was a marvel of galactic engineering, with holographic displays, crystalline control matrices, and what appeared to be a small kitchen area. Napoleon approved of the kitchen. He did not approve of the food dispensers, which failed to dispense anything interesting when he bit them. Marcus, Lily said, watching the alien landing craft rock back and forth like a snow globe. I think Napoleon found his way inside their ship. How can you tell? Marcus asked. The ship's emergency lighting began flashing in what appeared to be a distress pattern. Muffled crashes and the sound of what might have been alien profanity filtered through the hull. Call it a hunch, Lily said. Up in orbit, Admiral Crexmore was receiving real-time telemetry from the landing craft, and the readings made no sense. The ship's internal security sensors are detecting a single small life form, but it's somehow accessing restricted areas, dismantling critical systems, and... He paused, double-checking the display. Apparently eating the emergency rations? Sir, his tactical officer interrupted. I'm getting reports from the other scout ships. They want to know if they should begin immediate planetary bombardment protocols. Negative, Crexmore snapped. We have personnel on the ground, and according to this data, the humans have somehow weaponized their entire ecosystem. We need those soldiers to gather intelligence before we... He was interrupted by an urgent beeping from the communications console. The voice of Captain Vextar, normally crisp and military, now sounded like someone who'd been through a particularly traumatic experience involving small, determined mammals. Admiral Crexmore, sir, requesting immediate emergency extraction for the entire surface team. Extraction? Captain, you have plasma rifles and powered armor. Surely you can contain a single... Sir, the biological weapon has breached our landing craft. I repeat, the weapon is inside our ship. And sir? Vextar's voice cracked slightly. The humans want to know if we'd like them to help get it out. Down on the surface, Marcus cupped his hands around his mouth and called toward the rocking spacecraft. Napoleon, come on out, buddy. You're gonna give yourself indigestion eating alien technology. A small explosion lit up one of the ship's windows, followed by what sounded suspiciously like satisfied chittering. He's probably found their computer core, Lily observed. Napoleon has a thing for fiber optic cables. Thinks they're some kind of fancy spaghetti. Lieutenant Zackwell, still perched in his tree, made a sound like a deflating balloon. That's our navigation system he's eating. Oh, Marcus said apologetically. Yeah, you're probably going to want to call for a ride home then. Admiral Crexmore, listening to this exchange through the ship's still dog-owning external microphones, made a decision that would echo through galactic military history. All ships, implement Emergency Protocol 7, prepare for immediate tactical withdrawal. Sir, his tactical officer asked, you want to retreat? From one planet, because of their pets? Communications. Send a priority message to Galactic Command, Crexmore ordered, ignoring the question. We have encountered a civilization that has weaponized predatory species for planetary defense. Recommend immediate reclassification of Sol 3 from primitive backwater to approach with extreme caution. The ship shook again, and through the external sensors they could see Napoleon emerge from a maintenance hatch, dragging what appeared to be the landing craft's primary computer core, which he'd somehow compressed into a more convenient carrying size. Make that approach with extreme caution and possibly tribute, the Admiral amended. The emergency extraction beam that pulled Marcus, Lily, and Napoleon up to the inevitable consequence was supposed to be reserved for critically wounded soldiers and hazardous materials. Napoleon, still clutching pieces of the landing craft's computer core like the galaxy's most destructive toddler, seemed to enjoy the experience immensely. The teleportation chamber materialized around them with a soft hum, and Marcus found himself standing in what was clearly designed to be an interrogation room. The walls were a sterile gray, there was a single metal table, and the lighting was the kind of harsh, unflattering illumination that made everyone look guilty of something. Well, this is cozy, Marcus said, looking around while Napoleon immediately began investigating the structural integrity of the table legs. Very alien abduction chic. I like what you've done with the place. Admiral Crexmore entered, flanked by two guards, who were clearly trying to keep as much distance as possible between themselves and Napoleon while still appearing professional. The Admiral was impressive in the way that giant mantises are impressive when they're wearing military decorations and look like they haven't slept in several cycles. I am Admiral Crexmore of the Galactic Survey Corps, he announced formally. You are now prisoners aboard the flagship of the 47th Exploration Fleet. Prisoners? Lily raised an eyebrow. That seems a bit dramatic. We were just trying to help you get your landing craft back in working order. Help? Crexmore's compound eyes focused on Napoleon, who had successfully determined that the table was indeed edible and was now sampling it. Your biological weapon has crippled our most advanced scout ship and consumed classified military hardware. Marcus sighed. Look, I keep trying to explain this. Napoleon isn't a weapon, he's just curious and hungry and completely lacking in what most species would consider survival instincts. Impossible, Crexmore stated flatly. Our analysis clearly indicates this creature was engineered for maximum destructive potential. No natural evolutionary process could produce something so perfectly designed for dismantling advanced technology. You'd be surprised, Lily said, pulling out her tablet. Earth's evolutionary history is basically a 4 billion-year arms race between things that want to eat other things and things that don't want to be eaten. Napoleon here represents one end of that spectrum. You expect me to believe this? This engine of destruction evolved naturally? Well, sure, Marcus said, watching Napoleon discover that the interrogation room's lighting fixtures made interesting sounds when prodded. I mean, he's not even the most dangerous animal we've got. The silence that followed was the kind of profound quiet that occurs when someone says something so fundamentally alarming that everyone else's brain temporarily shuts down to process it. Not the most dangerous, Crexmore whispered. Oh, heavens no, Lily said cheerfully, warming to the topic. Napoleon's a honey badger. They're fierce, sure, but they're more about attitude than actual lethality. If you really want to talk dangerous, you should see a grizzly bear. Or a hippo. Actually, hippos kill more humans per year than most other large mammals. You have larger versions? One of the guards squeaked. Much larger, Marcus confirmed. Bears can weigh up to 800 pounds and run 30 miles per hour. Hippos are basically living tanks that can bite through crocodiles. Oh, and speaking of crocodiles... Stop. Admiral Crexmore held up a trembling claw. Please, stop. But Marcus was just getting warmed up. Then there are the smaller ones that are actually worse. House cats, for instance. Cute little murder machines. We invite them into our homes and they systematically exterminate entire species of birds for fun. Not for food, mind you, just because they enjoy it. We domesticated serial killers, Lily added helpfully, and we think it's adorable when they bring us their victims as presents. And don't get me started on geese, Marcus continued. Canadian geese will attack anything that looks at them wrong. Cars, aircraft, other geese, small children, large children, adults, basically anything with a pulse. They're like Napoleon here, but with wings and a serious attitude problem. Admiral Crexmore was making notes on his datapad with shaking claws. Wings, attitude problem, larger versions. And chihuahuas, Lily said. 5-pound dogs that are convinced they can take on the world and are usually right because they're too crazy for anyone to want to fight them. But the truly terrifying part, Marcus said, leaning forward conspiratorially while Napoleon successfully extracted a light bulb and began examining its internal structure, is that we're omnivores too. The datapad clattered to the floor. Omnivorous. Crexmore's voice had climbed several octaves. You mean you're predators? Apex predators, technically, Lily confirmed. Binocular vision for depth perception, forward-facing eyes for tracking prey, persistence hunting capabilities, tool use for killing things more efficiently than our natural weapons would allow. We literally evolved to chase things until they died of exhaustion, Marcus added. Then we invented spears to speed up the process. And agriculture, so we could stay in one place and still have something to eat between hunting trips. And civilization, so we could organize our hunting more efficiently. Napoleon, having successfully dismantled the light fixture, was now investigating the door mechanism with the focused intensity of a master safecracker. But here's the really fun part, Marcus continued, apparently oblivious to the fact that Admiral Crexmore was now hyperventilating. We didn't stop there. We looked at all these dangerous animals I mentioned. The bears, the big cats, the wolves. We said, I bet we could make those work for us. And then we did. We turned wolves into dogs and convinced them that protecting humans was more fun than eating them. You domesticated other predators? Crexmore managed. Some of them, Lily said. The others we just learned to avoid or kill more efficiently, except for Australia. What's Australia? Marcus and Lily exchanged glances. It's probably better if you don't know, Marcus said kindly. Let's just say it's where we keep the really creative stuff. Admiral Crexmore looked at Napoleon, who had figured out how to open the door and was now in the hallway, exploring what appeared to be the ship's main corridor with the enthusiasm of a tourist in a very expensive gift shop. Your biological weapon is escaping, he said weakly. Napoleon's not escaping, Marcus corrected. He's exploring. There's a difference. Escaping implies he wants to get away from us. Napoleon just wants to see what's over there, and probably whatever's behind that blinking panel he's currently investigating. An alarm began sounding somewhere in the ship's depths. The bridge of the inevitable consequence was a marvel of galactic engineering, featuring holographic displays that showed the positions of 17 different star systems, crystalline control nodes that hummed with barely contained energy, and a command chair that looked like it had been designed by someone who really understood the importance of looking intimidating while making life or death decisions. It was also, at the moment, in complete chaos. "Sir, the biological weapon has breached Deck 7, Communications Officer Blickstar announced, his voice cracking with panic. "It's systematically working its way through our primary systems." "How is that possible?" Admiral Crexmore demanded, watching the ship's internal sensors track Napoleon's progress through the corridors. "We have automated defense systems, security doors, containment fields." "The defense systems keep trying to target it, sir, but it's too small and moves too unpredictably," Tactical Officer Vreenax reported. "The security doors slow it down for approximately 3.7 seconds each. And, sir," he paused, checking his readings again, "the containment fields just make it angry." On the main view screen, they could see security footage of Napoleon encountering his first force field. The honey badger had approached the shimmering barrier, tested it with one paw, received a mild shock, and then proceeded to attack the field generator with the focused determination of someone who had just been personally insulted by a piece of machinery. "He's treating our defense systems as enrichment activities," Dr. Lily Chen observed from where she and Marcus stood under guard near the view screen. She'd managed to keep her tablet and was taking notes with the enthusiasm of a scientist watching a particularly interesting experiment. Fascinating adaptation to novel environmental challenges. "Enrichment." Admiral Crexmore turned to stare at her. "This creature is dismantling a warship and you're treating it like entertainment?" "Well, from Napoleon's perspective, that's exactly what this is," Marcus explained reasonably. "Think about it from his point of view. He's in a new environment full of interesting smells, unusual textures, and things that make neat sounds when you bite them. This is basically Disneyland for honey badgers." "Sir," the tactical officer's voice went up another octave, "it's reached the armory." The security feed switched to show Napoleon discovering a room full of plasma weapons, energy grenades, and what appeared to be some kind of molecular disintegration cannon. The honey badger surveyed his options with the discerning eye of a connoisseur, then selected a plasma rifle that was roughly twice his size and began dragging it down the corridor. "Oh, that's not good," Marcus said mildly. "Not good?" Crexmore's eye stalks were practically vibrating with panic. "Your biological weapon has armed itself with military-grade plasma weaponry." "Actually, I don't think he knows it's a weapon," Lily said, watching Napoleon attempt to figure out which end of the rifle was more interesting. "He's probably just attracted to the power cell. Honey badgers are naturally curious about anything that hums or glows." As if to prove her point, Napoleon managed to activate the weapon's targeting system purely by accident. A heads-up display materialized in the air, showing targeting reticules and what appeared to be an ammunition counter. Napoleon looked at the display, looked at the rifle, then did something that made every alien on the bridge emit a collective sound of horror. He figured out the trigger. The plasma blast carved a neat hole through 3 bulkheads before dissipating, and Napoleon made a pleased chittering sound that clearly indicated he'd found a new favorite toy. "Emergency evacuation protocols," Admiral Crexmore shrieked. "All personnel to escape pods immediately." Wait, Marcus said, raising his hands in a calming gesture. "Before everyone panics, let me try something." He activated the ship's intercom system and spoke in the same conversational tone he'd used to call Napoleon back from investigating a suspicious log. "Napoleon, buddy, you're going to hurt someone with that thing. How about you bring it over here, and I'll see if I've got any of those honey cakes you like." The security feed showed Napoleon pause, tilt his head, and then begin dragging the plasma rifle toward the bridge, leaving a trail of scorch marks on the deck plating where he'd accidentally triggered it several more times. "He's coming here?" Lieutenant Zakowel, who had somehow managed to find another high perch on a bridge support beam, made a sound like a deflating balloon. "The weapon is bringing the plasma cannon to us?" "He's not a weapon," Marcus said patiently. "He's just Napoleon, and he probably wants to show off his new toy." The bridge doors, designed to withstand direct hits from military-grade explosives, lasted approximately 4 seconds against a honey badger with a plasma rifle and poor impulse control. Napoleon burst through the smoking remains of the entrance, dragging his new favorite possession and looking extremely pleased with himself. The bridge crew, 17 of the Galactic Survey Corps' most experienced officers, took one look at 40 pounds of honey badger armed with enough firepower to level a city block and did what any reasonable beings would do. They climbed on top of their workstations and tried to become as small as possible. Napoleon surveyed his new audience with approval, then noticed that the bridge had even more interesting equipment than the corridors. The main tactical display with its swirling holographic star maps was particularly captivating. He abandoned the plasma rifle and began investigating whether the display was edible. "See?" Marcus said to Admiral Crexmore, who was currently crouched behind his command chair. He's not interested in destroying things, he just wants to understand them. Unfortunately, his method of understanding involves teeth and claws and occasionally high-energy weapons. The tactical display began smoking as Napoleon's investigation grew more thorough. Although, Marcus added thoughtfully, we should probably do something about that before he figures out what the self-destruct sequence does. Admiral Crexmore's terrified whimper was barely audible over the sound of critical ship systems being enthusiastically deconstructed by Earth's most unintentionally effective ambassador. I don't suppose, the Admiral managed, your species would be interested in a peace treaty. Napoleon looked up from his work, a piece of what appeared to be the ship's primary navigation computer hanging from his mouth, and made a satisfied chittering sound that somehow conveyed both triumph and a mild interest in whatever Marcus might have in his pockets. Marcus said, reaching for the honey cakes he always carried for emergencies. Sounds like a conversation we should definitely have. 3 hours later, the most unusual peace treaty in galactic history was being drafted, in what used to be the Inevitable Consequences main conference room. The table, which had previously been a pristine example of crystalline engineering, now bore the distinctive tooth marks of a honey badger who had tested its structural integrity and found it wanting but acceptable. Napoleon himself was curled up in the center of the table, having claimed Admiral Crexmore's ceremonial plasma sidearm as a pillow and radiating the satisfied contentment of someone who had enjoyed a very productive day of exploration. Occasionally, he would crack open one eye to make sure his new territory was still secure, then go back to napping. So let me make sure I understand the terms, Admiral Crexmore said, consulting his notes with claws that still trembled slightly. The Terran Defense Confederation agrees to maintain current biological weapon deployment strictly within the Sol system boundaries. We're not calling them biological weapons, Dr. Lily Chen corrected patiently. They're animals, normal Earth animals, and we're not deploying them anywhere. They live here. Right. Crexmore nodded rapidly. The Terran animal population agrees to remain within Sol system boundaries. Well, we can't exactly speak for them, Marcus pointed out, but sure, we'll do our best to keep the wildlife from stowing away on any outbound ships, though I should mention that cats are surprisingly good at finding small spaces to hide in. The Admiral's eye twitched. Since the interrogation session, any mention of Earth animals sent him into minor panic attacks. The ship's medical officer had prescribed a mild sedative, but it wasn't helping much. In exchange, Crexmore continued, reading from his datapad, the Galactic Survey Corps agrees to provide advanced technology sharing, unrestricted trade agreements, immediate membership in the Galactic Council with full voting rights, and a permanent security exclusion zone around the Sol system to prevent any accidental encounters between galactic shipping and Terran fauna. Don't forget the part about Australia, Lily added helpfully. Yes, the Admiral said quickly. Complete prohibition on any galactic contact with the continent designated Australia under any circumstances whatsoever. We didn't even tell you what's in Australia, Marcus noted with amusement. And we don't want to know, Crexmore declared emphatically. If the rest of your planet produces creatures like this, he gestured carefully toward the sleeping Napoleon, then Australia is clearly some kind of maximum security biological research facility, and we want no part of it. Actually, it's more like where evolution went to experiment with different ways to kill things, Lily said thoughtfully, but your interpretation works too. Lieutenant Zockwell, who had been taking notes from what he clearly considered a safe distance, looked up nervously. Admiral, what do we tell Galactic Command about the nature of the Terran threat? Crexmore considered this carefully. We tell them the truth, that we have encountered a species that has somehow achieved perfect symbiosis with biological weapons of unprecedented destructive capability, and that their entire planet appears to be a carefully maintained ecosystem designed to produce increasingly dangerous organisms. That's actually not entirely inaccurate, Marcus admitted, though I'd phrase it more as we share our planet with a bunch of animals that haven't figured out they're supposed to be afraid of things. Same thing, Crexmore said firmly. Communications Officer Blickstar entered the conference room carrying a message pad and looking like someone who'd been through a significant trauma. His usually immaculate uniform was scorched in several places, and he kept glancing over his shoulder as if expecting to be ambushed by small mammals. Admiral, we've received response from Galactic Command regarding your preliminary report. And? They're sending the entire Third Fleet to establish a perimeter around the Sol system, sir, and they want to know if we need psychological counseling for the crew. Probably, Crexmore muttered. What about the diplomatic status update? Earth has been reclassified from primitive backwater suitable for standard conquest protocols to advanced biological warfare civilization, requiring maximum diplomatic courtesy and substantial tribute offerings, Blickstar reported. Also, sir, they want to know if we should warn commercial shipping about potential stowaway biological weapons. Napoleon chose that moment to wake up, stretch, and yawn, revealing an impressive set of teeth that had recently been used to sample some of the galaxy's most advanced technology. The assembled aliens instinctively leaned back. Good point about the stowaway thing, Marcus said. We should probably put together some kind of inspection protocol. Earth animals are curious about new environments, and some of them are small enough to hide just about anywhere. How small? Kexmore asked with the tone of someone who really didn't want to know the answer. Well, you've got your insects, Lily began, and the Admiral held up a claw to stop her. No, we don't need to know about insects. We'll scan everything, multiple times with very thorough scanning procedures. Probably wise, Marcus agreed. Though I should mention that Earth insects are really quite remarkable. Take army ants, for instance. No, Crexmore said firmly. No insects, no ants, no additional biological nightmare fuel of any kind. We have a treaty. We have boundaries. We have a very clear understanding that Earth's wildlife stays on Earth and everyone else in the galaxy stays a comfortable distance away. Napoleon made a sleepy chittering sound and settled back down on his plasma weapon pillow, apparently satisfied that the negotiations were proceeding to his liking. There is one more thing, Marcus said casually. Since we're now members of the Galactic Council and all, we should probably mention that we've got space programs of our own. Nothing too fancy yet, but we're working on it. Space programs? Crexmore's voice went up an octave. You mean you're planning to leave your planet? Eventually, sure. Humans are pretty curious too. We like to see what's out there. The silence that followed was broken only by Napoleon's contented snoring and the distant sound of the ship's automated repair systems trying to fix the damage caused by one small mammal with boundary issues. Perhaps, Admiral Crexmore said slowly, we should discuss expanding the security perimeter around your system. That's probably smart, Lily agreed. Humans have a tendency to go places they've been told not to go. It's kind of our thing. And, Marcus added with a grin, we usually bring snacks for the trip, including the kind that might wander off and explore on their own. Admiral Crexmore made a note on his datapad with shaking claws. Recommend immediate upgrade to maximum security perimeter. Also recommend hazard pay for all diplomatic personnel assigned to Terran relations. Also recommend very, very thorough psychological evaluation for anyone volunteering for Earth duty. Napoleon stretched again, opened one sleepy eye, and made a sound that could have been agreement or could have been a gentle reminder that he was still armed and comfortable, and everyone should probably keep that in mind during future negotiations. And that, according to galactic historical records, was how humanity achieved immediate membership in the Galactic Council, a generous technology-sharing agreement, and the distinction of being the first species to negotiate a peace treaty using a honey badger as their primary diplomatic representative. The records also note that Earth was simultaneously designated as both a protected world and a quarantine zone, which was probably the smartest decision the Galactic Survey Corps ever made. Napoleon, for his part, was officially appointed as Earth's first interspecies relations specialist, a position that came with unlimited access to alien technology for cultural research purposes and a guaranteed supply of honey cakes. He was, by all accounts, excellent at his job.